Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 80th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. So, I love discussing film as it relates to time, and we reminisce about the 60s, 70s, 80s, and of course the 90s. Now, I'm a 90s baby, and I must say it is my favorite decade for films. The 70s runs a close second, but I think the 90s sort of encompasses everything good about movies of the past and everything that would be good about movies in the future. We can argue about the best year of the 90s, 93, 94, or the sacred 99. I personally think that the best year for film is 1999. Now, I can say I'm very biased. 99 was like the pinnacle of my formative film watching. I was in and out of the movies all the time with my mom. I promise. I went to the movies at least 60 to 80 times that year and was in and out of the video store renting mad movies a week. Now, I'm not saying the best movies of all time came out this year. Just the sheer amount of quality is just very impressive. Almost anything you watch from that year will at least be decent or good. Some are really good. I mean, some of my favorite and most nostalgic films came out that year. I won't say what they are because I think in the future I'll make a favorite films of 1999, which would be entirely different from this list. 99, we still had so many genre films, great animated films, foreign language films, teenage fun, raunchy comedies, hard hitting dramas, fun, mindless action, and sci fi, and filmmakers weren't holding back on whatever they wanted to say. A mid budget film could gross $100+ million. It was really a different time for movies, and I will say I do miss that, and I think we all took it for granted. I won't yap much longer, so here's what I did. I picked the best films of 99, not my favorites, that'll come later, but these are ones I think most can agree that are some of the definitive best of the year and that most people can enjoy. These are films that I think have contributed to the advancement of cinema and have stood the test of time. I try to diversify it with most genres covered. I picked 10, and I will have 10 honorable mentions because I just had to. So let's get into the best movies of 1999. Number 10. The Blair Witch Project, directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick. So this isn't necessarily the best film, but this movie pretty much popularized the found footage genre and is one of the most financially successful films of all time based on budget versus box office. This movie was so influential. You don't get Wreck, Paranormal Activity, or As Above, So Below without this movie. I personally didn't like this movie in 1999 because I was quite young and I didn't appreciate the beauty in its minimalism. But now I do think it is a classic that I do love. It's creepy in a weird way and does keep you on edge through its short runtime. I mean, people thought this was a documentary. They thought it was real. The actors did a great job for having little to no experience, and pop this on today if you haven't seen it in a while. It holds up better than ever. This movie will forever hold a place in film history, whether you like it or not. Number 9, Election, directed by Alexander Payne. Now, this will be the most biased film on the list, but I think that it definitely deserves to be here. This gave us Alexander Payne's coming out party. In his second feature, he gave us one of the most unique satirical comedies that I believe influenced a lot of films later and showed us his very unique flavor that carried all the way to today with his beautiful Oscar-nominated film, The Holdovers. A funny film about a young girl who is super determined to win a school election and a teacher who hates her. We easily are getting Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon's best performances. I wish Reese would have kept doing challenging and daring roles like this. This isn't everyone's flavor, but I promise you, every dark satire that came out after this was watching it. It's aged like a fine wine, and if you haven't seen it, shoot this to the top of your watch list. Number 8. The Iron Giant, directed by Brad Bird. I had to throw an animated movie on here, and I know people would think it would be something that may or may not be mentioned later. Brad Bird been doing his thing for a while now, and I think this is one of his best. This heartwarming story about a loner boy who befriends a giant robot is so much better than it should be. It's one of the last great 2D cartoon movies before the world of 3D took over. This movie proved that other studios besides Disney and Pixar could put out a fire animated movie. This movie hit harder than a lot of dramas we got this year, and it's better than it was in 1999. I love this movie on a personal level, but I also think that it's gained this strong following over the last 25 years. You guys feeling old yet? This is an undeniable classic that you should put on if you haven't seen it in a while. Number 7. Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze. This is a fun and weird movie. Being John Malkovich follows a puppeteer who ends up finding a hole at his job that puts you into the body of actor John Malkovich. I know it sounds weird and stupid, but Charlie Kaufman wrote this movie to perfection. It's funny, odd, original, and one of the unique films we've ever gotten. This really pushed writer-director Charlie Kaufman's career forward, but Spike Jonze directed his tail off here. Cameron Diaz, John Cusack, Catherine Keener, and of course the man of the hour, John Malkovich, all give an all-star performance in this. This movie opened the door for a lot of the more narrative-driven art house films that we get today. It's movies like this that keep movies fresh and stand out even all these years later. I know a lot of people haven't seen this, but trust me, it's one of the best movies of '99. Number 6, Beau Travail, directed by Claire Denis. This is going to be the most unusual and maybe even debatable pick here. Beau Travail is a French language film about a troop of soldiers in Djibouti led by a man whose world is turned upside down with the arrival of a new troop. This is a weird and oddly poetic film. It's an LGBT classic and a film about lust and jealousy. The first time I saw this film, I really didn't know what I was getting into. It was weird, but subtle in its message and somehow packed this hard punch by the end. I was quite mesmerized. Director Claire Denis is at the top of her game here, giving us some of the most intricately choreographed scenes of training and working out that almost feels like a strange 80s workout tape. This is one you really just need to watch and kind of get the message for yourself. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I give it a taste. I feel this is one of the most underrated films of all time. Number 5, Eyes Wide Shut, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Tons of people think this film doesn't have Stanley's final stamp on it, and I agree with that. The ending of this doesn't feel Kubrickian, and there are small details in the editing that feel a little loose for Stan. Still, he did shoot it all and was pretty much done with it, so we will call it his film. And guess what? It's still really good. This movie stars, at the time, married couple Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Tom is a rich doctor in New York City who has it all, but a discussion with his wife flips his perfect world upside down. This movie packs in a ton of themes, all done in a quite subtle way. It's known for its infamous party scene, which is a good time, but that's a very small part of this film. We really are following Tom around for 3 hours, watching this secret break him down throughout the days. There's something weirdly magical and comforting about this movie, and learning about the production of this movie is just as fun as watching it. Kubrick, although tough, sounds like a fun guy to work with. I'm sure most of you have seen this, and I guess I don't need to suggest it. Number 4, The Green Mile, directed by Frank Darabont. A master of prison movies. Another one we've all pretty much seen and cried at a few times. Do I really need to introduce this movie? The Green Mile is a film about a prison guard and a man who has supernatural powers in prison during the Great Depression. Tom Hanks and Michael Clark Duncan are fantastic, and we get a young Sam Rockwell performance as well. This movie is well crafted and one of the most heartfelt ones here on this list. I mean, it's definitely an Oscar type of movie that may not have aged super well, like some of the other movies I didn't mention. But truthfully, I watched this movie recently and I still cried, man. It still grabbed me in, and another clock in over 3 hours, it just flew by. Frank Darabont has given us some of the best dark tales of the 90s, and he's never given enough credit in my opinion. I know this one may seem kind of high to be on this list, but it's one I think everyone can get down with. Number 3, Magnolia, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Well, this was one my mom took me to see at a late showing when I was like 8, and it's another 3-hour movie I was just captivated by then, and even more now. This was the last movie of this style we got from PTA with a big ensemble and multiple stories. This collection of stories that all roll along in parallel are some very beautiful and touching ones, all leading to this gorgeous, beautiful, unique ending. We get a dynamite performance from Tom Cruise and some really great performances from the late Philip Seymour, Julianne Moore, and John C. Reilly. PTA's writing here was smooth and creative while somehow grabbing you in and making you relate to each character in one way or another, even when they're being a real POS. I think this entry was the one we knew that PTA really had some things to say, and his future was going to be bright. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest this. Grab your tissues. Number 2, The Matrix, directed by the Wachowskis. I went back and forth with this being the top pick, but I had to put it at 2. The Wachowskis followed up the action thriller Bound, which is a classic in my eyes, with this sci-fi action joyride that I don't think anybody was ready for. This movie had to be high on the list just for influence alone. I mean, everything ripped this movie off. The slow motion 360 shots, bullet dodging, black outfits, I mean everything. Now, this movie had a lot that influenced it as well. But just like Tarantino, they took these influences and elevated them to new heights and pretty much made them their own. This film not only has insane action, it also carries a very strong message that couldn't be more relevant now. What the Wachowskis were able to do here was groundbreaking and incredible, and only dudes like Nolan are making movies on this level. I watched this movie every day for at least a month straight when I got it on VHS back in the day. It's a true rewatchable, a true sci-fi action classic, and honestly, how can we not say it's one of the best movies ever made? This looks better than 90% of the films that come out now. It's a true classic. All right, before we get into number one, I have 10 honorable mentions. No order. 10 things I hate about you. Star Wars The Phantom Menace. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. American Beauty. Rosetta. Toy Story 2. American Pie. Girl Interrupted. The Talented Mr. Ripley. And Boys Don't Cry. All right, guys. Number one, Fight Club, directed by David Fincher. Fincher is one of those directors I have nothing but respect for, and I know this film has picked up a lot of negative labels over the last few years, but it's being talked about more now than ever, and more than most movies coming out in the last year. I mean, people say this is the ultimate film bro movie, but this movie has an overall message that anyone and everyone can relate to. The themes of consumerism and conformity are incredible. Dedication to a meager and sacrificial lifestyle to achieve something great, to leave your mark. The themes of repression and release, the sense of belonging, all things that people deal with more than ever today. To even prove this film has influenced and touched many walks of life, Emma Seligman and Rachel Sennett essentially wrote their female high school version of this movie with bottoms, paying homage to the film and Fincher throughout the film with references to the movie. This movie has become one of the most beloved and cherished cult classics of all time, and it seems to only be picking up steam with each passing year. Whether you like it or not, you've seen it, and you've seen it because someone told you to watch it. It's easily one of the most talked about films of the last 25 years, and for good reason. This wouldn't be my favorite film of the year, but I do think it's the best as far as its reputation and popularity today versus how good the film actually is. This movie has an originality to it and a feel I don't think I've ever really seen captured quite like this film has. If you know a film, let me know in the comments below. Also, Brad Pitt is the coolest mother ever on the planet in this movie. There's just something about the turn of the century coming. Guys, thank you so much for watching my best films of 1999. Let me know what you think are the best films of 99, not your favorites. Which ones did I get right? Which ones did I get wrong? Let me know if there's a film or topic you would like me to review. Make sure you follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader, guys. I linked it below. We're having a lot of fun over there. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. I got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. That'll be linked below for more movie content. I will be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn.